Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Rudine, the Director of Donor Engagement for the chapter of the ALS Association. Thank you for joining us for another ALS Community Chat. I'm here today with a special guest, Claire Carter. We're going to be chatting about her experiences growing up with her father who had ALS. Claire will be providing some helpful recommendations and advice for others who are facing or have faced similar circumstances. If you have any questions for myself or Claire, feel free to type in the comments and we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you so much for joining me, Claire.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. I'm excited to be here.
To start off, I'd love for you to just tell me a little bit about yourself and, of course, your connection to ALS as well.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Claire Carter, born and raised here in Portland. And my connection to ALS is that I lost my dad when I was 11 years old to ALS, and he battled for about 4 years. Ever since his diagnosis, we've been really involved as a family and myself personally, just to do everything we can to get rid of this horrible disease. My dad has definitely been my inspiration to be super involved and kind of see where I can help out and hopefully push forward this awesome kind of association doing all these things for people that are living with ALS or have family members with ALS.
Thanks, Claire. And I never had an opportunity to meet your dad, but I know he inspired a lot of previous staff members and volunteers. And your dad's name was Reagan Carter, correct?
Regan Carter, yep.
Regan, I'm so sorry.
Yes. No, you're good.
Can you tell me a little bit more about him and what his life was like before ALS?
Yeah, for sure. Yep. My dad was, I was young when he passed away, but from what I remember and the stories I've heard about him kind of the things I picked up about him was he lived really large. Our team's actually called Go Big to kind of sustain that legacy of just going big, living large, doing everything and kind of being something to everybody. He was a huge athlete, like an ultra athlete. I would say he was involved in all sorts of sports, with skiing and windsurfing being his main focuses. And so it was really cool to kind of grow up with him and be exposed to all those different things. He never stopped. He was just always gathering people, throwing parties, traveling, always on the mountain, always out in the gorge, windsurfing. So he was definitely a doer. And unfortunately, he got diagnosed when he was in his early 40s. And actually, his dad had ALS as well. So it runs in our family, which is a hard reality. I have an older brother as well. And so, just another reason we want to do everything we can to get rid of this horrible disease. He was awesome. And the minute he was diagnosed, again, I was super young, but I remember just kind of like more and more people just coming around, being in the house, lots of gatherings, lots of dinner parties. Like ALS did not stop him from kind of still living and doing everything he could to be involved in the ALS Association and just kind of early research, just to, really kind of figure out what's going on. And I would say that we still kind of live on his legacy by gathering, and we're always up at the mountain. We're big skiers ourselves, and going to the gorge and all of those things just to really sustain his legacy. So,
So do you, Claire, also share his love of sports and those pieces? Are you an athlete yourself?
Yeah, so I would say that he probably got us up on the mountain before we were walking. So like skiing is in our family. We definitely took after him in that respect. And so I actually ski raced in high school, skied my whole childhood, and still do to this day. I would give it to him. For my brother is a huge golfer. He played golf in college. And really, that was something him and my dad did when he was younger, kind of a bonding thing. I'm a runner. I love to just work out, all sorts of things. So I would say that we've definitely kind of gotten that from the Carter side of the family. We love the legacy that he last, and the family that we still kind of are so close with and continue to get together with all the time, with kind of that mutual, we're all there for kind of to continue going big and living on that legacy as a family. So.
Well, thank you, Claire. And I know you were saying you were very young when your dad was diagnosed with ALS, but what are some of your memories and your experiences growing up with your dad, and kind of looking back on that time? What do you remember, and things like that?
Yeah, so again, I was super young when he was diagnosed. So I guess kind of from that child perspective, I do recall, things changing, like in a little girl's kind of point of view. It was just really confusing, as I recall. Just, going from when we'd be with our dad, we would be skiing or running or, ice skating or whatever it may be, to seeing him like have to use a brace or slowly progress into a wheelchair and slowly start to kind of not be able to talk and things like that. And I just remember as a little girl, my parents were divorced, so when I would be at dad's house, it was kind of, the vibe was just different. And I remember like the caregivers and just the family members around were so great and kind of involving my brother and I, and being really realistic with us of kind of like, this is what's going on. We're confused too. It's really hard, but we're all going to be in this together, and just kind of coming together as a family. But yeah, it was a really kind of hard foreign experience to be so young and wanting to be involved. And the way that looked was helping with his feeding tube, or sitting on his wheelchair, like playing with the little screen or things like that. So as a kid, I think you're resilient and you just kind of you don't know otherwise. And so um looking back, it was obviously really traumatic and things that I'm still working through now. But yeah, I just recall, from my little point of view, we were really involved. We all gathered for all of the ALS walks and galas and all of those things. Everyone in the family was really great to my brother and I, just to make sure that we felt supported and again involved. So yeah, I remember it being really confusing and really hard, but it was just kind of the new normal. So I think a lot of those things hit probably a little bit harder as I grew up. And I'm still only 24, so I'm still not super old. But as I've kind of grown to be a little bit more mature, looking back on some of those things, it's sad to think of myself as a little girl and like going through those things knowing what I know now. But it's the part of it. It's horrible. So all of us are going through it when we have somebody in our family with ALS.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm struck by how you were saying it was also a new normal for you. We use new normal, as I'm sure you know, a lot with people
Mm-hmm.
living with ALS as they adjust to their new normal. But it was also a new normal for you as a child to get used to
Yeah.
your dad's progression as well. And did you
Mhm.
appreciate, you had mentioned the how a lot of the caregivers or family members were very realistic with you? Was that something you appreciate it, you can look back and appreciate now, or what are your feelings around that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I would say it's so blurry for me. But now that I'm older, I think that was the right approach, just because, obviously things were filtered for like a child's perspective. But just to kind of be along for the ride, nothing was like, I don't recall anything being hidden. I was right in there helping out with, like I said, the feeding tube, or like mashing the pills, or, all those things that are so sad to think about. But at the end of the day, looking back, it was like I really was involved and going through it with the rest of the family. So I would say that is definitely the right approach. I mean, I think that probably our family members were trying to figure it out as they were going too. So just kind of adapting and trying to figure out what the best route was with young kids. And so yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would do as a parent, but I think that was the right call, of just, being real, and this is what's going on and what's happening, and we're all going to be in this together, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think it seems like what you're saying is one of the most important things was just having your family around and having this
Mhm.
support system,
Yeah.
which I feel like you and your dad must have been really, really grateful for. And
Mhm.
hopefully a lot of the families that we serve have that as well. And if not,
Yeah,
as a chapter, we're also here as a
yeah,
support system, of course, as well. Um,
totally.
and you've talked a little bit about your involvement, but now that you're a young adult, what are ways that has kind of helped you continue to memorialize and honor your dad and also
Mhm.
work through things now that you're a young adult?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say, as I said right from the beginning, I know Aubrey McCauley, I'm sure some people recognize that name. She was my dad's caregiver. So she is like one of our, really important people. She's a part of our family. She's been somebody that I've been really close to my whole life. And so she was awesome kind of in being that bridge between the ALS Association and our family. So right from the beginning, we, built a team. It was Go Big. So many people were involved. I remember as a kid looking forward to some of those events because it just felt really special, and it felt like I could kind of help out. And I'd go early with Aubrey and help set up, and it was just again something that I felt like I was kind of along for the ride with everybody for. So we've been involved for so long. As I've grown older, I've taken on kind of a little bit more. And at my high school here in Lake Oswego, I started like an ALS awareness week in a football game because we actually have a coach at our high school that is suffering from ALS as well. So that was a great connection. In college, I was able to kind of get my sorority involved and was able to meet Dr. Joseph Beckman at Oregon State, which was really cool to kind of see what was going on the science side of things. And then just continue to kind of rally my friends and the people who are important to me now, for the walks and just whatever events we can do, because I think it's really important. And you guys have been so awesome to me and my family as well. So I think my coping mechanism really did turn into, how can I use this trauma, this pain, this really hard thing, and do something about it. And so I think just over the years, all of the opportunities to be involved have been a huge way to overcome some of that trauma or get through some of those hard things. So really taking kind of like that positive association with ALS as much as we can, of like, this is something awesome. Let's fundraise. Let's get the word out. Let's get people together. So yeah, I would say the opportunities and all the things you guys do have been a huge part of my healing. And just really, I've taken on kind of a passion for ALS and what we can do and what's going on. So it's been really huge for me.
Well, thank you for all that you do, Claire. And I didn't realize that you had, kind of went from high school even into college, continuing
Mhm.
to support. And I think the fact that you even started things on your own is like a really great way to be empowered and to also make a difference. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing, especially from a high school perspective. I feel like, yeah,
Thank
that's a great
you.
way, yeah, to get involved. And thank you.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to other young people who have a loved one diagnosed with ALS, whether they're very young or teenage or even young adult? What kind of
Yeah.
advice would you have?
Yeah, I think that's another great question. I would say just kind of with what I know now and kind of what I've been through, I've said it a lot, but just kind of gathering with family has been huge. Within our family, we've done family dinners like as many Sundays a year as we can, which has just been a really cool way for us to, stay close to my dad's side of the family and just be together. And I would say, a lot of those times together, we're talking about my dad. They're telling stories. They're, reminding me or my brother of, what he was like and all these things. And so just kind of keeping that conversation going. We all are together and involved in all the things that we can be. So just really that togetherness, I think, is huge. And rallying your people around you just to give you that support. And just in full transparency, I've really leaned on therapy, which has been huge for me. My therapist, just over the years of working through some of that childhood trauma and finding ways to move forward and kind of live with that burden or that question of, am I and my brother going to get ALS? Like, this is so scary. How do I live with this? And so I think just that realistic approach and talking with people, whether that be family members or a therapist, has been so helpful for me. So those two things I think have been huge. And again, just getting involved, using the resources that you guys offer, finding ways to be proactive, spread the word, kind of reiterate that positive kind of reinforcement with this horrible thing, ALS, but making it something a little bit easier to swallow has been huge. So I would say that those are my three big things.
Well, thank you for being so honest and transparent about your journey, for yourself as well and your family. I know we discussed this when we last spoke, and if you don't mind speaking a little bit more, I know you said when you were actually a lot younger, you were not open to counseling or therapy. So do you mind just sharing a little bit about that? I think that could be helpful for people to realize that maybe it's not right now is time, but maybe in the future it could be a good time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I do have memories of kind of like right after my dad had passed away. I was so young, and I think my family, my parents, my mom was just trying to figure out like how do we do this? How do we get through this? And being more mature now and thinking back, like that makes sense. Like let's find these resources. Let's see what works. And I just remember not being willing or down to go to therapy as a little girl. So I think we figured that one out really fast, and I could see how that would be scary for a parent. But luckily, kind of as I got older, I came to it myself. So I think there's hope. I think every child's different, but for me, that was just, I think it was so painful. I wasn't ready to face it yet. And so it took some time for me to really get comfortable and like want to dive into some of those really heavy feelings. So yeah, I don't know. I guess parents that are going through this with their kid, there's just patience and hope for, hopefully later on, if now is not the time, there's always later to start digging into some of those really hard things. So yeah, for me, that was not the move at the beginning, but I'm really thankful for it now. So
Well, thank you for sharing that. And, I think you're very true that every family is going to be different. Every child's going to be different, but it's really positive to hear your experiences and kind of what has helped you. And obviously how you're still engaging in different ways and still working through everything. We've gotten a lot of really sweet comments from people who knew your dad and really loved your dad. Lance, of course, our executive director, was just made a comment about how he was such a rock star and well loved. So I think that speaks a lot to how amazing your dad was and how amazing your family is. So I would love to just ask you one more question, if you don't mind sharing a favorite memory of your dad. I know you were very young, but if there's anything that comes to mind.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, first thing always for me is just skiing. I remember, like I said, he had us out there when we were super, super young. I was probably too young. But, I have these memories going up there, and he was just such a daredevil. So he would bring me up to like the Black Diamonds, and I was probably only 4 years old. And so, yeah, just like crazy, crazy memories. But I think that really embodied kind of who he was. He was always pushing the limits and going big. And yeah, when I'm up on the mountain today, that's kind of where I feel his presence. It's a happy place for us. I just got engaged this year, and we were up at Timberline. So it's a special place for us. So yeah, I would say skiing, all things Oregon, Mount Hood, the Gorge, all those fun places that we grew up going to with him when he was still kind of willing and able to do his crazy sports and just bring us along for the ride. So lots of good memories, but lots of hard ones too.
Yeah, but that's so nice you're able to have those great memories and to now have it attributed with your engagement. Congratulations on
Totally.
that.
That was spot on. It was perfect.
Well, thank you, Claire. Is there anything else you wanted to add or say, or do you feel pretty good?
I feel great. Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity. I really do. I've loved over the years just being able to have different opportunities to push myself, kind of put myself out there, be vulnerable. I know it's helpful for others, I hope at least. So yeah, I'm happy to help however I can, and always love to get connected with that kind of mutual ALS kind of connection, which is unfortunate, but we're all in this together. So
Well, thank you, Claire. I think you ended
yeah.
that perfectly. We're all in this together. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, everyone who watched. And of course, this is always available on our website as well as on social media channels. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.